I hate when customers won't leave at store closing time, so I make a clever plan to get rid of them. I've worked in a supermarket for 10 years. You get your share of Karens, and the only thing you can do is smile politely. But what I hated even more after an 8-hour shift and having to close up the supermarket were the customers who came in 5 to 10 minutes before closing who just do their shopping like no one else wants to go home. There was a time that I was scheduled every Friday closing shift and pretty much every Saturday closing shift. The store closed at 8, we weren't open on Sundays back then. Also, on Saturday we had to take out all the cash drawers and manually count all the money. We could start doing this when all the customers had left and the front and back doors were locked. So, customers coming in 5 to 10 minutes before closing time and taking their sweet, sweet time to shop were hated. Hated with passion. My shop had a procedure. We'd barricade our entrance and turn our front door on only opening when people wanted to leave the store at about 5 minutes before closing. We'd remind customers at 2:45, 10, and 5 to closing time that the store was going to close and please go and pay for your groceries. Normally, we had very few incidents. This one, however, is burned in my memory. It was a Saturday. As head of the cashiers for that night, I had the honor to make or break the day of our beloved customers. I'd had to deal with my fair share of Karens, male and female, and I just wanted to go home. So I followed the procedure, asked one of my fellow money handlers to set the front door, and stay there to handle any customer. At 2 minutes before closing time, a man comes running to the door. My colleague asks what he needs and reminds him that the store is going to close and he won't have much time. He says he just needs formula. Since I was busy with the customer, she let him in. Guy gets a basket and goes into the shop. Since he said he needed formula, we thought he'd be in and out like Roadrunner. Nope. No, because Formula Man didn't need formula. At 5 minutes past closing, he's seen at the cheese section of our store. 15 minutes past at our wine section. What the frick does he need that for? What kind of baby does he have? Several of my colleagues have gone to this man to get him to the counter. He scoffs, huffs, and says that he's a paying customer. My fellow money handler was the last one to go to him, and that's when Formula Man went too far. He yelled at her, cussing at her, and making a high school student cry. Now, I'm teed off, so I do what I always do in these situations. I take off my store shirt, put out a neat jacket I keep in case of emergencies, and put it on. You see, when you have the store outfit, you are often seen as a lesser being. But behold, I change my outfit and suddenly I look like management, and my word is all-powerful. The real manager sees this happening, pops out a huge grin, and goes to the back to watch from the security cameras. So I don the magical outfit and I go to Formula Man. I tell him in no uncertain terms that the store has been closed for 15 minutes and he's been asked multiple times to go and pay for his things. He starts to huff and puff himself up like the big bad wolf. By the way, I'm a 5'2" woman and people think that they can intimidate me. I told him that he was only allowed entrance since he said he needed formula. So I gave him a choice. He could go now and pay for the things in his basket, or I would take the basket from him, grab the formula he claims to need so much, and he could pay for that. He could choose not to do either, and in that case, security would love to make his acquaintance. Either way, he'd leave now. I'd been working there for 6 years at that point and had done a lot of closing shifts. I thought this would be a kind and diplomatic way to solve a problem, as dragging them outside would not be so customer-friendly. And this guy, he tried, oh boy, he tried to threaten and intimidate me. He failed. He left with his cheese and wine and many threats to call corporate. The next week he came again. This time he encounters me at the door. What did he need? Formula. So I brought him to our service desk, went inside and bought out a single pack of every kind of formula we had. I asked him which one he needed. He didn't say a word and left. Don't mess with our closing times. No question of jerkiness could possibly be posed here. Pretending you need essential items to feed your hungry baby when you're really just stocking up for your wine and cheese night? Behavior fail, moral fail, and just all-around society fail. Screw Formula Man. I especially love how effective the author was at catching him at the door the next time he tried to pull this crap, and fetched him the exact item he said he was getting. No charcuterie for you, you Ken D-bag. The worst thing about him is that he's actually ruining things for people who do need essential items. Like, we have to trust that the people who say they're coming in for formula are actually doing this to feed a baby. And the fact that he had the nerve to chew out the employees who were gently pointing out that he was being a dink, to the point of making one of them cry? Like, sweet crap on a cracker, sir. How do you justify all of this to yourself? And the worst part of this is that you know that half the time when the employees enforce the closing times and kick these monsters out, not-so-great managers will side with the customer and punish them after the fact. In my old cafe, we actually set up a barricade of chairs in front of the door with the flipped close sign when we were cleaning down for the night. And people would be climbing over said barricade and asking if we could make them a latte. People are great until they become customers, aren't they? Entitled Dad has special permission. Where have we heard that before? I work at a virtual reality lab at a university library, where the students can come and unwind and play VR games for free. They can also develop and test their games on our system. However, due to the sensitive nature of financing for VR systems at the moment, we limit our VR users to 18 years or older, so our equipment is less accident-prone in the hands of younger users, and also so entitled parents don't sue us if their kids get hurt. That all makes sense, right? This policy is clearly detailed on our site and on a poster near our station. Some students have tried to bring their younger siblings or parents with their kids, and every time I have to say that we have a policy against it, but we're looking into waivers in the future. Most of them completely understand and will calmly leave without any harsh feelings. One day, as I was a new employee at the station, this was one of my first shifts alone without guidance from my supervisor. We didn't have many reservations for the evening. The one we did have, I recognized as a guy who came to our station frequently over the summer, so I didn't think much about it. When he arrives, he has his son in tow, who he's bought to watch before, but the kid usually sits with his Nintendo DS and plays quietly, to which I didn't acknowledge as he's been to the station before and he knew the rules. Seriously, this kid was an angel. He's always so happy whenever you see him and he's so polite. Normally, I don't like kids, but this one was so hard not to like. I began setting up the headset for the dad's use. The dad says to the kid, "You ready to play, buddy?" The little guy is clearly dancing with excitement, and I have to walk up and say, "Excuse me, sir, we have a policy, no one under the age of 18. "What? No. I called in and asked earlier and someone said it was okay. Do you know who? I thought perhaps someone didn't tell me and he actually did have permission. Did you get the name of the person you got permission from?" And the kid says, "It's okay, Daddy, you can just play and I'll watch." Dad says, "No, I was given special permission from the library, he can play today, I called and everything." He was clearly becoming agitated since I said his child couldn't play, so I gave my supervisor a quick text that explained the situation. However, there was no speedy reply, so I called my boss. When my boss picked up, I explained the situation to them as well. My boss told me to ask what number they called, and I relayed this question to the dad. He showed me a number from his call history and I relayed the number to my boss. That number wasn't even related to any lines to the library, and my boss quickly said if he wanted his kid to play, he'd have to go to their boss, and told me where the dad could find them. I explained this to the dad and that he could still play and his kid could watch, but I gave him directions to where he could get the permission and he seemed okay with that answer. He began putting on the headset to use. Moments later, I hear, "The headset is blurry. Is there any way you can fix it?" This can happen because the lenses on the inside are beveled with your eyes. If not lined up correctly, it's a whole blurry mess. So I said, "If you pull the headset down a little more on your face so that it sits straight, it should look better. If not, try adjusting the pupil distance dial on the side for better vision." He completely ignored my first piece of advice even though I could clearly see that the headset wasn't seated correctly. He begins fiddling with the dial and getting more worked up when it doesn't work. He played with it for about 10 minutes. It's now 30 minutes into his hour-long reservation. He takes it off and says to me, "Where did you say that I could go for that permission?" I kindly gave him the information as to what office and building he needed to go to. His reservation was the last slot available before we closed. He asked, "What time do you close?" I said, "Around 4 p.m. He picks up his kid and says, "Come on, buddy, we're going to see if we can get you this headset and pay Mr. Boss's boss a visit." He gives me a disgusted look like it was my fault that these were the rules, and stalks off in the direction I pointed him in. Meanwhile, my supervisor finally texts me back saying that he was lying and he clearly knew the rules. Apparently he'd tried to pull the same stunt over the summer with them, but got nowhere with it. They rushed out to see if I still needed help, But the entitled dad had already left, and they apologized that it happened while I was alone on my shift. On the next shift, we got word from my boss's boss that this dude did make it there and argued that his child should be able to play. However, he was quickly shut down as we never grant these kinds of permissions to anyone, and we'd never heard anything else regarding the subject of what happened to him. He's never made another reservation at the station again. In short, an entitled dad tries to get special permission for his kid to use VR, but lies about it after he's found to clearly know the rules and pulled similar stunts before. Of course he was a repeat offender. The kind of perplexing thing is why he was so insistent that his kid be allowed when the child himself had clearly accepted these rules were in fact a thing. One day I dream of getting a VR headset, and to be completely honest, I'd be very wary of letting a kid below the age of 13 play on it. That seems like a great way to destroy one or both of the controllers, or maybe have the kid run crashing into a sturdy piece of furniture and ruin your relationship with the parents for a while. I kind of have to admire the gall on the dad for continuing with the lie and showing his non-existent call history to the library and just trying to claim that these calls were definitely to someone who had totally given him one-time specific permission that nobody else could get before that point in history. And of course, he had no capacity to listen to the technical instructions to fix the headset so that it actually worked properly. All of this after multiple visits, apparently. So let's recap. A man with no capacity to learn, no ability to follow instructions, limitless capacity to try the same thing over and over and expect different results, and the world's nicest kid? At least we can take solace that apparently you can be a nice guy no matter what genetic line you come from. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Entitled dad learns that the rules apply to everyone in the pool. So here's what happened. So I'm a guy who loves swimming, probably my favorite activity after kickboxing. I've always taken swimming a bit too seriously, every day trying to break my limit or record, 'cause practice makes perfect and I hate being interrupted in anything I do. I'm normally a pretty chill person and I don't often lose my cool. But please, for the love of God, don't tick me off. It usually doesn't go very well. It was my daily swim time, 8 p.m. every night after kickboxing. Everything was fine until I entered the pool, changed my clothes, put on my cap, took a little shower, and got into the pool. I chose my regular lane, which is the cornermost one, 'cause no one usually takes that corner, and then I noticed this kid, about 7 or 8 years in the pool, making whale-like noises and splashing around in the water. The clubhouse rules are that kids below 13 need to get their butts out of the pool at 7:30 p.m. No exceptions. So that older kids or more mature people who want to swim can swim and not horse around. Basically meaning you can horse around till 7:30 p.m. irrelevant of age. I mean, it's whatever, I don't really care about a kid being in the pool as long as he's not being a pain to me. And I'm 17, just so you know. That's when I notice that this brat is deliberately getting in people's way who are in the middle of a lap, repeatedly. And again, I don't give a frick as long as it's not me. Selfish, I know, but I don't care. People tell him to get out of the way and he giggles and goes away. I began to take my third lap and the brat starts heading my way. And of course, I can't see because my head's in the water. And the last time I remembered, he was on the opposite lane of the pool from me, so here I am doing freestyle and trying to meet my goal for the day, and in comes the brat headbutting me in the water. I stagger and halt myself, choking on some water. Not fun. Still keeping my cool, I tell the brat to get off the lane I'm using. Mind you, the pool is empty-ish. It's a 6-lane pool, so 5 of these lanes were taken, including mine. He tells me to go to another lane. Dude, you're a kid. Behave like a kid. I start getting angry. For the second time, I tell him nicely, go to the lane you are in now. I'm guessing he sensed that crap might hit the fan for him if he pesters me anymore, so he swam to his father in the lane that was occupied. I didn't know his father was there. He was just chilling there. Like, dude, what the frick? Control your kid. People here are wishing you had used protection more, or at least would have just been a better father. All I hear are some murmurs and then the kid pointing toward me. I start heading to the initial point of my lane to restart, but then the entitled dad starts to waddle towards me with his kid. I knew something was up, so I didn't start my lap again because I knew I'd just be interrupted. Sorry for being a stereotypical guy here, but the entitled dad was a young, handsome, clean-shaven man So naturally, I assumed what he was going to say when he came up to me was, "Sorry for the inconvenience, I'll see that my child doesn't interrupt anyone again." But reality is often disappointing. This was in Hindi, so I'm translating very roughly. He said, "What happened? Why did you scold my kid?" I replied, "Well, I don't know whether you noticed, but your kid here is headbutting everyone in the pool for his own enjoyment." "He can do whatever he wants. It's a public pool, you retard." Now I start losing my cool, and my volume increases a little for our conversation to become a show for everyone else. Just because it's a public pool doesn't mean you and your absolute trash son can do whatever you want. Do you even have a basic sense about how to behave in public and how to make your child understand what's wrong and what's right? Don't talk to me like that, you trash. Do you know who I am? I give absolutely zero fricks about who you are, and observing from your behavior, you must be nothing but scum who got everything handed to your butt by your parents. And as a matter of fact, the people here and the lifeguards were doing your kid a favor by even letting him be in the pool. This finally draws the attention of the lifeguards, who were finally done with the kid's crap and told the kid to get out of the pool. The father, getting more angry by the second, told him to go change and wait for him until he was done swimming. Obviously, the kid began to whine and said that, "Dad, if I can't swim, then you can't either." My gosh, if looks could kill, I'd be dying for an eternity. The guy starts waddling out of the pool with his son still crying, giving me a deadly look, and what do? I take off my goggles, put a big smile on my face, and wink. And carry on swimming. That guy felt that from behind, I think, because he was fuming. So what do you think? Am I kind of a jerk for this? Yeah, I can't see this flying for me at all when I was a kid. My dad would be grabbing me by the ear, apologizing profusely to everyone I'd knocked into, and steering me towards the cafe to wait until the rest of my siblings were done with their much less obnoxious and intrusive swim. Speaking from experience, by the way, I think in most pools, the lap pool at some point gets taken over by the more serious swimmers. And seriously, if the dad in this situation didn't realize that, then has he even been to a pool in his whole fricking life? I don't know if what the author was saying was true and that this was some kind of entitled class thing, and if it was, then that increases the jerkiness tenfold. If you're upper class, then maybe you should show some class, Dad. Revenge is a dish, best severed burnt. So full disclosure, I'm a pretty petty person and I'm also a smart aleck. I know that I'm a jerk in this story, but I think it was justified. So, I was a chef at a very nice restaurant. One of the top things on our menu is an A5 olive wagyu. In non-chef geek terms, it's an $800 steak. I get an order for 4 of them at a table. I cook all 4 of them the way they should be, which is served rare due to the nature of the steak. And I do that every time unless instructed otherwise. We use a special unit for cooking called a salamander. It cooks our steak at 900 degrees Fahrenheit, so we only put it in 30 seconds per side. One of my waiters comes up to me in tears saying that table wanted me. So I leave the kitchen and put on my customer service face, and before I can even walk up and ask if there's a problem, some lady barks at me, it's raw. I apologize and ask if she'd like me to cook it more. She says she wants it done for another 10 minutes. I try to explain that it would be incinerated, but she barks at me. "You heard what I said, go do it!" I was tired of this bullcrap, so I just smiled and said, "No problem." I took it back and tossed it in the back for 10 minutes. It honestly hurt my soul to ruin such a good steak, but it's what she asked for. So when I take it out, it literally fell apart into ash. I personally brought it to her with a huge smile on my face. She asks what the hell is this, that she didn't want this, and I cut her off, and I said, "I heard what you wanted, and I did it." For those asking, she had to pay, which she reluctantly did. My manager and boss were very chill about it and even laughed after she had left, and at my restaurant, 20% tip is required and incorporated into every check, and thankfully the other 3 people were cool and they even apologized, which made me happy. I assume it was a business meeting based on what they were talking about and how they were dressed. More delightful hospitality revenge. You see, evidently, this restaurant was at a certain level of reputation. At that point, although it's an oppressively high-pressure environment, you're at the whim of the chefs, because they have demand out the wazoo, and as far as they're concerned, you're lucky to be able to get a place there. And since you've enjoyed the service, you have to pay or get the cops called on you. You made the order screw-ups, so you have to live with it. I love this. This is the definition of malicious compliance, but also, from the way her co-diners apologized, we can be sure that she was unbearable in a whole bunch of situations like this. No hard feelings from the others, clearly. Also, I think the title of the story was meant to be Revenge is a Dish Best Served Burnt, but the author wrote severed, so I left it in. They say at the beginning of the story that they're a smart aleck, so hopefully they appreciate this. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.